Everything in here is getting another chance, probably to be something different than what it is. The people in here are trying for another chance, too.
There's kind of a irony to it. Yeah, it's kind of a metaphor for life, I guess.
Lincoln County Jailer Rob Wilson has about 10 inmates work in this recycling center.
The primary reason they do it is to get that good time off their sentence. It gets them out quicker.
That's something he needs right now.
This is cell 119. It's designed to hold about 8, and it's probably got 12 to 13 in it right now.
This old jail in his county technically has 72 beds.
It's a dinosaur. Now to build a new facility, you have to have a minimum of 150 beds.
During our visit, there were 163 inmates.
So right now, your county jails are kind of stuck in the middle.
This is not specific to Lincoln County, but this jail is a good example of the 83 other county jails across the state, overflowing and out of answers. A lot of the overflow is pouring down from the top.
The state lacks the space to take them from the county jails into state custody.
State inmates give you money.
Correct.
So it's a double-edged sword.
Most definitely.
Wilson gets $31.34 a day to house the state inmate. It helps, but it doesn't make anything around here better. It's not enough money.
And we are with them. We are singing from the same sheet of music. We've been talking about this problem for a long time.
Justice and Public Safety Secretary John Tilley says the drug epidemic, low felony thresholds, and bail inconsistencies all pile up here.
Right now we have had as many as 25,000 state inmates, almost. This 1 month this year we had as many as 25,000 state inmates.
And about 12,000 state beds. The rest stay in county jails, but the overflow is too much.
Are we headed back to private prisons?
We're in negotiation with a private prison company that owns 3 sites here, the same 3 where we terminated those contracts some time ago.
Tilley advocated to end the contract with the Nashville-based CoreCivic a few years ago. He says they didn't need the headaches and risks of private prisons. Now, the same group is probably coming back.
We're holding a hard line on we want to make certain that our relationship with them is one which benefits Kentucky. We don't see the same problems we saw, years ago with the use of private prisons.
Wilson doesn't want private prisons. He does want the money private prisons make off the state, which is double what he gets.
To me, it's flesh peddling, basically is what it is.
The reason that per diem for county jails is lower, they don't have the physical space, certainly not the fault of anyone there. Jails are not set up for programming. So we're actually having to pay more because these private prisons do have space for programming.
Wilson has had to create space outside his jail, teaching inmates accountability and using what he has and making the best of it.
Talk with our neighbor outside.
Kentucky's Justice and Public Safety Cabinet graduates hundreds of officers a year. Police officers train for 27 weeks. Impressive.
Oh!
Got knife.
You aren't watching their training, though.
Drop the knife.
These men and women are probation and parole officers, training to be the bridge between incarceration and freedom. Now, want to hear something scary? By the end of these officers' first year, odds are about a third of them will quit.
That presents a danger to public safety. That makes it more difficult for the offenders and more difficult for the officers.
How do we fix it?
Pay is one thing that we're definitely fixing.
Let's get 2 of you guys.
The starting salary for a probation and parole officer is $31,000.
Which is a good 10 grand below police on average.
Whatever he does, you just respond, okay?
But if you think about it, probation and parole officers only train for a quarter of the time the police do. Their arresting powers are more limited.
Probation, parole.
So maybe $30,000 a year isn't that bad. But there's a saying, walk a mile in someone else's shoes.
Most of the time we don't give them a heads up that we're coming.
We spent 3 days with probation and parole officer Josh King. He's considered an experienced officer at 5 years in.
Just swung by to check up on you, man, real quick. Good to see you, man.
Good to see you.
We went on home visits.
It's just you that lives here, right?
That's it.
You're coming off diversion another couple days or so?
Yeah, 21st, I think.
That's awesome, man.
Others have a ways to go.
There he is.
the way I looked last time I was on TV.
Steve spent some time in prison and is now spending the rest of his 23-year sentence out on parole. He and Josh have had their ups and downs.
Oh, that's good when I'm not high. When I'm high is when it goes bad. They don't like me so much.
And you don't like us so much, right?
Definitely don't like y'all so much.
How important is a relationship like that for you?
I think he's the one that says whether I go back to jail or not, you know. So if our relationship's good and I know what he expects of me.
The next day, perfecting what they all hope to never do.
We're going to do 50 rounds.
Never know when they might have to.
Holster an empty weapon.
Sounds good.
Same day as qualifying, same Josh,
William Despain.
different look, different character.
Sorry to hear that. I mean, did your grandfather know you were in the program? Was he proud of you for sticking with it?
This time, a counselor during an office visit. Josh is one of 644 probation and parole officers across the state, supervising 47,000 people. That's 73 to 1.
I would be lying if I told you that you can know every single detail about these folks. You just have to do the best you can do.
There are no 2 days that are the same.
When Director of Probation and Parole Jonathan Hall took over last year, he says Josh's Lexington Probation and Parole Office had a 50% turnover rate.
That means half of the officers working there hadn't even been with us for a year.
And that's scary to the community, right?
It is. You know, one of the things I always say is that it takes over a year for somebody to really learn the job of a probation and parole officer because there are so many details and so many different roles they play.
How frustrating is it to have officers leave after less than a year?
Very. Every time you get an officer that leaves, a new officer has to come in and learn everything about 100 different people. That's a daunting task.
What we learned in just 3 days is this job demands a lot. You have to be physically and mentally tough. But the overwhelming demand is more personal.
How old is she?
2 months.
Can't believe you're a granddad, though.
Me
I
neither.
know
It is though.
A surprise to you, too?
Yeah.
It's a challenge to put a price on passion. All they can go by is reality.
Make that space greater so that you're safer.
And that's an overflowing number of people incarcerated that are coming out soon to meet people like Josh. But will officers like Josh even be there?
I heard that, man. Nothing wrong with that. All right, man.